If law prevails, and that is what we expect, we should get the court to make a recall of the election. That's what is they're asking, or legal team is asking for an annulation of the past election, because we found a lot of improprieties, let's call it that, and we believe that because of that, San Pedro went to the red, which was supposed to be blue.
Among those improprieties is a surprising admission by Chief Elections Officer Josephine Tamai on the witness stand on Monday that sometime in the months after the March 7th election, she personally oversaw counting of the ballots from San Pedro at her Belize city office. If so, it constitutes a grave error on her part and, says Senior Counsel Eamon Courtney, attorney for PUP mayoral candidate Andre Perez, casts a long shadow of doubt over the disputed election.
Sir, when it comes to the Chief Elections Officer handling of the ballots and taking it to her office, is that proper? Is that correct?
I think the regulations are very clear. Once those ballots have been counted, the presiding officer should seal the envelopes, hand them to the returning officer in sealed envelopes, and the law is very clear that they should not be opened until and if they are brought to court by an order of the court. And we have the Chief Elections Officer of her own mouth saying that she opened them and she counted them. We have now no confidence as to where those ballots are, the status of them, whether they are all accounted for, and that is an issue which we will be addressing the Chief Justice on.
Should they be at her office, as she admitted under cross-examination that they are?
They should be in a secure place, wherever she finds to be a secure place. The issue is that they're not to be opened. She opened them and counted them and did other things with them, and that is absolutely prohibited by the regulations, and so we will be making submissions to the Chief Justice on that.
Also of concern, according to Courtney, is the treatment of box C.E.O, from which arises the mysterious missing 275 ballots, which has been played down by the other side as a mathematical error. Courtney says it's more than that.
What they did, and this is the point we were making to the Chief Justice, what the Elections and Boundaries Commission and Ms. Cumberbatch in particular did was they realized this mistake and simply put on the form, strike out the numbers and add 275, change around the numbers and say, that is accurate. And I pointed out to Ms. Cumberbatch, you can only certify that if you went yourself and checked the actual ballots and said, yes, 275 were actually accounted for, and then put it on the form. She did not do that, and therefore her certificate of correcting it in our submissions cannot be relied on. That is just a mathematical correction to try to reconcile what they had on paper. This case is not about mathematics, it's about the politics and the votes, and the question is what were in those ballot envelopes with the ballots, and she didn't count them, so she can't testify to their accuracy.
But the other side, led by Esteban Pereira, are not fazed.
Do you think that this particular petition is frivolous?
Yes, I do believe it's frivolous, and I do believe that anyone who looks at the actual petition and the numbers contained therein will recognize that there is an obvious error and an oversight in terms of minor miscalculations that were later remedied, and that it's not sufficient enough for a court to set aside an entire election based on the facts or the position presented in that petition by the petitioners.
How do you view the returning officer's positions that she did not verify ballot by ballot to reconcile, and that she simply calculated based on what her presiding officers were noting on the forms and documents they were working with?
That statement that you just said in terms of a question actually speaks for itself, because that's exactly our position. We're saying that the purported errors are so minor that simply by looking at the forms, one can actually make those corrections and recognize where the little errors were made on the actual forms. And there was no need to actually go back to the actual ballots.
Aaron Humes reporting for News 5.